Have you ever asked a complete stranger to save you from embarrassment, only to discover he's the one person your family despises most? Emma Brooks. A shy girl who spent her life cleaning luxury hotel rooms borrowed a man for one night to avoid disappointing her father. But beneath that borrowed suit and kind smile stood Lucas Hale, the CEO her uncle blamed for destroying everything. And now, under a chandelier dripping liquid gold across 200 faces, her uncle is walking toward him with a smile that comes right before someone tears your world apart. This is the Roosevelt Grand, the kind of hotel where Emma scrubs other people's luxury for $9 an hour. Tonight, though, she's a guest at her father's 56th birthday party. The one he saved for. The one he borrowed for. The one he needed to prove to his wealthier brother-in-law that the Brooks family still mattered. Emma wasn't supposed to come alone. In families like this, being alone means being pitied. Being pitied means your father loses face. And losing face, her mother reminded her that morning, was worse than not showing up at all. So this shy girl did something desperate, something that would turn into the most inspirational night of her life. 12 hours earlier, Emma had spilled coffee on a stranger outside the hotel, a man who stepped out of a car that cost more than her father's house. She'd offered to pay for his dry cleaning, her voice barely a whisper, and then asked if he would pretend to be her boyfriend for one night. Just one. She expected him to laugh, to walk away. But he didn't. He looked at her with eyes that seemed to recognize something she didn't understand, and he said yes. His name was Lucas. That's all she knew. And in that heartwarming moment when he smiled not with pity but with genuine warmth, Emma felt something shift inside her chest. Now, beneath a chandelier that makes everyone look like they belong, Victor Crane stops in front of Lucas and stares at his wrists, at the cufflinks catching the light. I know those, Victor says loud enough that conversations start to die. Custom made. Only 20 people in the world have them. The 20 people who sat in the room when Crane Textiles was sold for parts. His voice climbs. You're Lucas Hale. The name lands like a gunshot. Emma's champagne flute slips. Lucas doesn't move. And the man she borrowed for one night to save her father's pride is the same man her family blames for destroying their fortune. What happens when the stranger you trust turns out to be the one your family can't forgive? Emma's alarm went off at 5 in the morning, the way it always did. She pulled on her uniform gray polyester name tag, pinned crooked, and walked 4 blocks to the Roosevelt Grand. The lobby smelled like lilies and money. Emma smelled like industrial detergent. She pushed her cart to the 7th floor and began her routine, stripping beds, scrubbing tiles, erasing evidence that people had ever been there. Invisible work. The kind that only gets noticed when it's done wrong. What if I disappoint him again tonight? The thought circled like a bird that wouldn't land. What if being there isn't enough? What if I'm never enough? At noon, her phone buzzed. A text from her mother. Your father turns 56 tomorrow. Don't embarrass him. Don't come alone. Emma stared at the message. She hadn't dated anyone in 2 years, hadn't had time, hadn't had courage. Her last boyfriend told her she was too quiet, too boring, too much like a shadow. She believed him. She thought about skipping the party. But her father had been talking about it for months, renting the ballroom, inviting his brother-in-law, Victor, and Victor's wife, Marissa, the couple who drove a Tesla and summered in the Hamptons, and never let anyone forget it. This party was her father's chance to prove he wasn't just a mechanic with grease under his nails, that he'd raised a daughter who had her life together, a daughter who wasn't alone. Emma clocked out at 3. But before she left, chaos erupted at the front desk, a guest from China furious, waving documents, the young concierge near tears. I don't understand what he's saying. she whispered. Emma hesitated, then stepped forward. In fluent Chinese, she explained the billing error, apologized for the confusion, and arranged a complimentary upgrade. The guest's anger melted. He thanked her and bowed slightly. The manager stared. "You speak Chinese?" Emma shrugged. "My mom's side. I just never mentioned it." The manager made a note on his clipboard. Emma slipped away before anyone could ask more questions. Invisible again. The way she preferred. She walked to the corner coffee shop, ordered an espresso she couldn't afford, and stood on the sidewalk holding it like a paper shield. That's when the black car pulled up. The door opened. A man stepped out, the tall mid-30s, wearing a white shirt so crisp it looked expensive, and Emma, startled, stumbled backward. The espresso launched. It hit him square in the chest. "Oh my God," Emma whispered. "I'm so sorry." She fumbled for napkins, her face burning. The man looked down at his ruined shirt, then up at her. He didn't yell, didn't even frown. He just waited. "I'll pay for the dry cleaning," Emma stammered. "Please, I—" And then, because panic makes people say things they'd never planned to say, the words tumbled out. "Could you be my boyfriend?" He blinked. "Excuse me, fake boyfriend." She clarified, her voice cracking. "You're just for tonight. My dad's birthday. I can't show up alone. I'll pay you. I don't know how much people charge for this, but I'll figure it out." The man studied her. Not with judgment, not with pity, with something else. Something that looked almost like recognition. "You don't have to pay me," he said quietly. He pulled a business card from his pocket and handed it to her. It was blank except for a phone number. "Text me the address. I'll be there at 7. Emma stood on the sidewalk clutching the card, watching the car disappear into traffic. She didn't even know his name. What she didn't see was the older woman standing near the flower cart watching the whole thing. Mrs. Rosa Moreno, 68, retired school counselor, now working part-time in the hotel laundry. She studied the man getting into the car, and something flickered in her memory, a letter she'd received years ago from a boy who'd been in an accident. A boy who'd written, "I don't know her name, but someone stopped when I was bleeding. If you ever meet her, tell her I've been looking." Mrs. Moreno smiled to herself. "Sometimes," she murmured, "one night is long enough to meet the person you've been searching for your whole life." That evening, Emma stood in front of her bathroom mirror in the blue dress she'd rented for $60. It didn't fit right. The zipper stuck. She looked like a child playing dress-up. Maybe kindness isn't enough to be seen, she thought, adjusting the neckline for the third time. Maybe you need to be someone else entirely. Her phone buzzed. "I'm outside." She took a breath and went downstairs. Lucas was leaning against a car that didn't belong in her neighborhood, wearing a suit that cost more than her rent. When he saw her, he smiled. Not the polite smile strangers give. A real one. "You look lovely," he said. Emma didn't believe him. But God, she wanted to. The ballroom her father rented wasn't as grand as the hotel's main event spaces, but he'd tried. String lights, a jazz band, a cake with too much frosting. Walter Brooks stood near the entrance in a suit he'd bought 20 years ago, shaking hands, laughing too loud. When he saw Emma, his face lit up. Then he saw Lucas, and his expression shifted, calculation, relief, pride. "This is Lucas," Emma said. Her father shook Lucas's hand like he was weighing it. "What do you do, son?" Lucas didn't miss a beat. "Private finance." Victor Crane appeared then with his wife Marissa trailing behind in a dress that looked expensive but wasn't. Victor clapped Walter on the back. 56 and still got all your hair, brother. That's something." It wasn't a compliment. Then Victor turned to Lucas, eyes narrowing. Private finance. Which firm? Lucas met his gaze. Independent. Victor smiled thinly. Ah, one of those. The band started playing a slow jazz standard. Emma's mother appeared lipstick slightly smudged and looked pointedly at Lucas. A good boyfriend, she said, voice dripping with challenge. Asks his girlfriend to dance. Lucas turned to Emma and offered his hand. May I have the honor? Emma felt every eye in the room on her as they walked to the floor. Lucas placed one hand on her waist, took her hand in his, and led her into a slow waltz. He was skilled at this. Too skilled. Relax, he murmured. You're doing fine. I'm a terrible liar, Emma whispered. Everyone's going to know this is fake. Lucas looked at her, then really looked and said something that made her chest ache. It doesn't feel fake to me. But even the most heartwarming gesture can't protect you when the truth comes knocking. The moment shattered when a little girl screamed. Lily Emma's 4-year-old niece had been spinning near the dessert table when she tripped. She hit the floor, hard palms skidding across the tile. Blood welled up on her right hand. She started to wail. Her mother froze. Other guests stepped back, and Lucas was already kneeling. He pulled a small packet from his jacket pocket, a disinfectant wipe, and gently took Lily's hand. Hey, he said softly. Princesses don't cry over tiny scrapes, do they? Lily sniffled. Lucas cleaned the wound with careful precision. Then he pulled out a cartoon bandage. I keep these for important occasions, he said. Lily giggled through her tears. You're silly. Lucas smiled. That's what all the princesses say. He blew gently on her hand, and the crying stopped. The room exhaled. Marissa murmured, Where did you find him? Emma's mother looked at Emma like she'd won the lottery, and Walter Brooks stood a little taller. But Victor Crane wasn't smiling. He was staring at Lucas's wrists, at the cufflinks. Small silver engraved with something most people wouldn't recognize. But Victor did. He stepped forward. Those cufflinks, he said slowly. The room quieted. Custom made. Only 20 executives received them, the ones who sat in the acquisition room when my company was dismantled. His voice climbed. You're Lucas Hale. The name dropped like an anchor. Emma felt the floor tilt. Lucas stood brushing off his knees and met Victor's eyes without flinching. Yes. Victor's face flushed. You're the one who took over Crane Textiles, who put 300 people out of work, who took everything my family built and sold it off. His voice cracked. And you have the nerve to show up here at my brother-in-law's party with his daughter. Walter turned to Emma, his face pale. You brought him here tonight. Emma couldn't speak. Her throat had closed. Lucas stepped forward, voice calm and controlled. Mr. Crane, I understand your anger, but the company I acquired was already failing. The books had been altered. The debt was hidden. I didn't destroy Crane Textiles. I tried to salvage what remained. That's a lie, Victor shouted. Lucas didn't raise his voice. I cut away what couldn't be saved before everything collapsed. If you want to blame someone, blame the person who hid the truth until it was too late. The room went silent. Victor's face turned crimson. Get out. Emma grabbed Lucas's arm and pulled him toward the terrace doors. Her father called after her, but she didn't stop. The night air hit her like cold water. Lucas leaned against the railing, looking out over the city. Emma stood beside him, shaking. I didn't know, she whispered. I swear I didn't know who you were. I know. My uncle lost everything because of that deal. My family's been talking about it for 2 years, and it's you. Lucas turned to face her. I'm sorry this hurts you, but I won't apologize for what I did. That company was sinking. The leadership knew it. They hid it. And by the time I was brought in, the only choice was how many people would go down with it. He pulled off his suit jacket and draped it over her shoulders. The gesture was so gentle it made her want to cry. He reached into the pocket and pulled out a small wrapped chocolate, set it in her hand. "It's cold tonight," he said quietly. "You should go back inside. I'll leave." "Wait," Emma said. But she didn't know what else to say. So Lucas walked away down the terrace steps and disappeared into the night. Emma stood there holding his jacket, holding the chocolate, holding the pieces of the evening. Behind her, through the glass doors, she could see her father sitting at a table with his head in his hands. She could see Victor pacing, gesturing angrily, telling anyone who would listen about the betrayal. And she could see her mother staring at Emma like she'd set fire to their lives. Emma ran. Not back into the ballroom, into the hotel. Down the service corridors she knew by heart. Past the kitchen, past the loading dock. Into the laundry room where the machines hummed and the air smelled like bleach and steam. She collapsed onto a bench and buried her face in Lucas's jacket. That's when she heard the door open. Mrs. Moreno stepped inside carrying a pressed tablecloth. "Oh, honey," she said softly. Emma looked up, the tears streaking her makeup. "I ruined everything." Mrs. Moreno sat beside her. "Or maybe you just found out the truth faster than most people do." She folded the tablecloth with practiced precision. "Can I tell you something?" Emma nodded. Mrs. Moreno pulled an old envelope from her apron pocket, yellowed paper, careful handwriting. 10 years ago, I got a letter from a young man who'd been in an accident near 16th and Pine. He wrote to me because I'd been nearby teaching at the school. He said a girl had stopped, that she'd torn her own shirt to wrap his arm, that she'd left a handkerchief before running away. He wanted to find her, to say thank you. I never knew who she was." Mrs. Moreno looked at Emma. "Until today. Until I saw you spill coffee on a man who looked at you like he'd been searching his whole life." Emma's breath caught. She looked down at the scar on her wrist, the crescent moon from broken glass, the summer she was 15. The accident, the boy in the street. The memory flooded back. "I didn't think he'd remember." "He remembered," Mrs. Moreno said softly, "and he grew up carrying that kindness with him. Sometimes the people we save don't forget us, even when we forget ourselves." Emma found Lucas on the hotel's rooftop garden. He was standing near the edge, looking out over the city lights, hands in his pockets. The wind pulled at his shirt. "You shouldn't be up here," he said without turning around. "It's employees only." "I am an employee." Emma walked toward him. "Why did you say yes this morning when I asked you to pretend? You didn't even hesitate." Lucas was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out his wallet. From inside he unfolded something small and worn, a handkerchief, edges frayed with a clumsy heart embroidered in one corner. The stitching was uneven, childish. Emma's stitching. Her breath stopped. 10 years ago, Lucas said quietly. I was 17, new in the city, foolish. I stepped into the street without looking. A car hit me. Not hard enough to be fatal, but hard enough that I went down. My arm was bleeding. People walked around me. They had places to be. But you stopped. He held up the handkerchief. Just, you tore your shirt, wrapped my arm, pushed this into my hand, and told me to press it against the wound. Then you ran before I could even thank you. I never saw your face clearly, but I saw this. He touched her wrist where the crescent scar sat pale against her skin. I've carried this handkerchief into every boardroom, every negotiation, every deal that made people call me ruthless. Because it reminds me that somewhere in this world, There are people who stop when someone's bleeding, people like you. Emma's voice cracked. I forgot. I'm so sorry. I forgot. I didn't. Lucas folded the handkerchief carefully and held it out to her. This belongs to you. It always did. Emma took it, the fabric soft and impossibly fragile. If I'd known, you would have done the same thing. Because that's who you are. Lucas looked at her, and his voice dropped. Emma tonight hurt you. Your family is angry. Your father feels betrayed, and it's because of me. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to leave. I'm going to send your father a letter explaining everything. I'm going to make sure he understands you didn't know who I was, and I'll disappear from your life so you don't have to choose between your family and a stranger. You're not just a stranger, Emma whispered. Lucas smiled, sad and small. I know, but I'm good at taking the blame when it protects someone else. Emma looked at the handkerchief in her hands, at the crooked heart, at the evidence of who she used to be before life taught her to be small and scared. You know what's funny, she said. I've spent my whole life trying not to disappoint people. My parents, my relatives, everyone. I smile when I don't mean it. I apologize for things that aren't my fault. I make myself invisible so no one has to be uncomfortable around me. And tonight, for the first time, I brought someone who actually saw me. And it still wasn't enough. Lucas stepped closer. It was enough for me. They stood there, the city breathing below them, the stars cold and distant above. What do we do now? Emma asked. Lucas touched her face, gentle as a question. We go to that gala tomorrow night, the charity event for displaced workers that your uncle's been promoting, and we tell the truth. Emma's eyes widened. Lucas, if you show up there, then they'll know exactly who I am. His smile was tired. I'm done hiding, and I think you are too. The next evening, the Roosevelt Grand Ballroom was transformed. Crystal, champagne. 200 guests in their finest attire. The charity gala was the event of the season, a fundraiser for families affected by corporate restructuring. Emma stood near the back in the same blue dress, her father beside her, her mother fussing with her purse clasp. Victor and Marissa held court near the stage, and then Lucas walked in. The room turned, whispers spread like wildfire. Emma's mother grabbed Walter's arm. What is he doing here? Walter's face hardened. I don't know, but he's got nerve. Victor saw Lucas and began moving through the crowd. You've got to be kidding me. He stepped in front of Lucas, blocking his path. You think you can just show up here after what you did? Lucas met his eyes. I think I can tell the truth, if you'll let me. The MC took the stage, tapping the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight. Before we begin, I'd like to announce that this event has been made possible by an anonymous donor who established the Start Again Scholarship for children of displaced workers. Applause rippled. We're honored to have one of the affected families here with us tonight. Emma Brooks, would you join me? Emma's heart stopped. Her mother pushed her forward. She climbed the stairs to the stage, legs shaking. The spotlight hit her. Emma, the MC said kindly, your family was impacted by the Crane Textiles closure. Would you like to say a few words? Emma looked out at the crowd, at her father, at Lucas standing near the back, hands clasped, watching her with something that looked like faith. She took the microphone. Her voice trembled. We remember losses more easily than kindness, she began. My family lost something when that company closed. Security, pride, a future we thought we understood. And for 2 years, we've carried that loss like a stone. But tonight I want to say something different." She swallowed hard. 10 years ago, I stopped to help a stranger who was bleeding. I didn't think about it. I just did it. And I forgot. But he didn't. He carried that moment with him. And tonight, when I needed help, he showed up. Not because I deserved it, but because kindness doesn't keep score. The room was silent. Then Emma did something she'd never done before. She turned to face Lucas directly. "Some of you know this man as the person who acquired Crane Textiles. My uncle calls him a villain. My family calls him the enemy. But I know him as the person who remembered me when I'd forgotten myself. And if he has something to say, I think we owe it to him and to the truth to listen." Emma handed the microphone back and walked off the stage. She expected anger, judgment. Instead, her father was standing, hands shaking, eyes wide, and Lucas was moving toward the stage. "May I?" he asked the MC. The man handed over the microphone, uncertain. Lucas faced the crowd. "My name is Lucas Hale. I'm the one who acquired Crane Textiles, and I'm the anonymous donor." Gasps. Victor's face went white. "I won't claim the closure didn't hurt people. It did. But I want you to know why it happened." He pulled a folder from his jacket. "This is an independent audit. These are emails from people inside the company. They show that Crane Textiles was insolvent 2 years before I arrived. Assets were inflated, liabilities were concealed. The leadership knew, and they kept it quiet until the whole structure came apart. When the truth comes to light, some people run from it, and some people finally start to heal." Lucas held up the documents, his voice steady and clear. "I didn't destroy Crane Textiles. I tried to salvage what remained. I restructured the debt. I sold the profitable divisions to companies that kept workers on. I set up severance packages that went beyond legal requirements. And yes, people still lost their jobs. I'm not proud of that. But I won't apologize for refusing to let more families go under because someone at the top hid the truth." Victor Crane stood frozen, his face ashen. Marissa gripped his arm, her eyes wide. Lucas turned to face him directly. "Mr. Crane, you were the chief operating officer. You signed off on every quarterly report. You knew the numbers didn't add up. You had a choice: speak up and lose your position, or stay quiet and hope someone else would fix it before everything collapsed. You stayed quiet. And when it fell apart, you let me be the villain so you didn't have to be." "That's not..." Victor's voice cracked. "It's all here." Lucas held up the folder. "Documented, verified. If you want, I can give this to the press, or you can do the right thing." The room held its breath. Victor looked around at the faces watching him, at his wife's stricken expression, at Walter Brooks standing beside his daughter. He seemed to shrink. "What do you want from me?" he whispered. "An apology," Lucas said simply. "To them. The people you let take the fall." Victor's hands trembled as he took the microphone. His voice was barely audible. "I knew the company was failing. I knew the reports were altered. I thought we had time. I thought someone would fix it. I was wrong. And when it fell apart, I let you all believe it was someone else's fault because I was ashamed." He looked at Walter. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Marissa stepped forward. She took Emma's hand. "Thank you," she whispered, voice thick. "Thank you for not letting this become worse than it had to be." Walter walked toward Lucas. The two men stood facing each other, the mechanic and the executive, the father and the stranger who'd protected his daughter through an impossible night. Walter extended his hand. "I let assumptions cloud my judgment. I'm sorry." Lucas shook his hand. "You were protecting your family. I understand that. The applause started slowly, then built not triumphant, but something softer. Relief, understanding, the kind of sound people make when a wound finally starts to close. Emma's mother dabbed at her eyes. Lily, sitting on her mother's lap, whispered, "Is the princess's boyfriend staying?" Her mother smiled through tears. "I think so, baby." Emma found Lucas in the hallway afterward, leaning against the wall, the folder still in his hand. She didn't say anything, just walked up and wrapped her arms around him. He held her like she was something fragile and fierce at the same time. "You didn't have to do that," she whispered against his chest. "Yes, I did." Lucas pulled back just enough to look at her. "Emma, I've spent 10 years building a reputation, being the strategic one, the disciplined one, the one who makes the hard calls, and tonight I got to be the one who told the truth. Because of you. I didn't do anything. You stopped when I was bleeding." They stood there in the empty hallway, the gala continuing behind closed doors, and Emma realized something she'd never let herself believe before, that being seen wasn't the same as being exposed. That being known wasn't the same as being judged. That sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let someone see the crooked stitches and love you anyway. "What happens now?" she asked. Lucas smiled. "Now we see if a borrowed stranger can become something real." Emma laughed, the sound shaky. "That's a terrible line." "I know. I'm better at business than romance." "Lucky for you," Emma said. "I'm good at fixing things that are a little broken. Because love isn't about perfection. It's about choosing to stay when the truth gets complicated." 3 months later, the community center on Ash Street opened its doors. The building was old brick, the kind that held 100 years of stories in its walls. Inside, new computers lined the tables. A small library of career guides sat on fresh shelves. A sign above the entrance read, "Start Again Center," and below it, in smaller letters, "Emma Brooks Learning Room." Walter had insisted on the name. "My daughter started this," he'd said when Lucas tried to argue. "Let her have the sign." Emma stood in the hallway, watching people file in for the first skills workshop, resume writing interview preparation, basic financial planning. Former Crane Textiles workers, some of them. Others from different companies, different closures, different losses, all of them learning to rebuild. Mrs. Moreno was there too, volunteering as a counselor, her silver hair pinned back. Her smile warm and knowing. What had begun as a shy girl's desperate attempt to avoid disappointing her father had become something truly inspirational, a place where people could start over. Mrs. Moreno found Emma near the window and pressed something into her hand, the old handkerchief, but different now. The edges had been restitched with careful, even thread, a border of deep blue around the frayed center. "I didn't fix it," Mrs. Moreno said softly. "I just gave it a frame, so you'd remember what it was and what it became." Emma held it up to the light. The crooked heart was still there, clumsy and honest, but now it sat inside something stronger. "Thank you," she whispered. Mrs. Moreno patted her hand. "Some things aren't meant to be erased, honey. They're meant to be honored." That evening, Emma climbed to the hotel rooftop, the place where everything had changed. Lucas was already there, leaning against the railing, the city lights spreading below. "You're late," he said, without turning around. "I'm always late." She stood beside him. "I was saying goodbye to Mrs. Moreno. She's moving to Portland to be near her daughter. She gave you the handkerchief. She restitched it." Lucas turned to face her, and there was something in his pocket. He pulled out a small wooden box, plain and unvarnished. No velvet, no flourish, just honest wood smoothed by hand. I added something too, he said quietly. He opened the box. Inside the handkerchief lay folded and stitched into the new border was a single line of text, in thread so fine it looked like a whisper. Found you always. Emma's throat tightened. Lucas. I'm not asking you to marry me tonight, he said quickly. I'm asking if I can keep looking for you. Every day. Even when you're standing right in front of me. Because that's what love is, I think. Not the finding, the keeping looking. Emma took the box, her hands shaking. I don't want you to stay because of a memory. I want you to stay because of a life, a real one. With disagreements about dinner plans and bills we stress over and mornings where we're both too tired to be romantic. Lucas smiled. That sounds perfect. They leaned into each other, the kiss soft and unhurried, the kind that doesn't need an audience. Below, Walter walked past the building carrying Lily on his shoulders, her small hands tangled in his hair. He glanced up, saw them, and allowed himself a smile, the kind that comes from letting go of weight you didn't know you were carrying. Inside the community center, Mrs. Moreno looked out the window, her eyes damp but warm, and nodded once. Some stories, she thought, are worth all the crooked stitches it takes to sew them whole. This heartwarming ending was also the most inspirational beginning.